Okay, perfect. Welcome to episode 4 of the Damiano Dimension. I'm here with my good friend Donnie Hart as we wrap up the football segment. Before we get into it, shout out to our hosts, Two Docs. If you're watching, you can see the bar behind us, and if you're listening, well, you can hear me enjoy this cold brew.
It really is a cool place here. First time here, and it's pretty neat inside here. Just check it out.
Oh yeah, very chill. Um, yeah, so Donnie, go just like I said earlier, just kind of talk about yourself, just so
Yeah,
people get to know you a little bit better.
yeah. So I'm Donnie Hart. I'm from Wolford Friendship, so right outside of town. Grew up here in Lubbock, and got a chance to play football at Texas Tech. Came on a scholarship from the great coach Spike Dykes back in the late '90s. So had a good 4-year run here at Tech. Got a chance to try to take it to the next level, and had a cup of coffee with the Detroit Lions. Didn't really work out, and thought my passion was going to be coaching. Honestly,
Yeah.
started out coaching high school football. First job was in Wichita Falls Rider. Coached there for a year with a coach I'd played for at Tech, Rudy Maskew, as the head coach. Came back for a girl, had a girl, had the wife back here in Lubbock, and so came back to Lubbock and coached the year at Lubbock Monterey. Ended up doing something I didn't even know they had. Became a
Thank you.
drug rep, and I didn't even know pharmaceutical reps existed, to be totally honest with you. Took that job in sales and have really not looked back since. Been a part of the sales industry for the last 17 years, and just recently got a chance to put on some headsets and get up in the booth and do some broadcasting. Had you there to produce all that
Yes,
stuff.
sir,
Made me
yes,
look like I
sir.
knew what I was doing, and so it's been a fun last couple of years. Obviously, out in Shallow following the Shallow Mustangs and Phillies. And
Gotcha. Perfect. It's a great intro. Couldn't do it better myself. So basically, what we're doing here in this kind of like little segment
Yep.
thing of sports is especially with football, I wanted to reach out to the people and the people that don't know sports as well, and kind of bring them in a little bit. And you have a very interesting perspective because you played. Well, first of all, you were number 1 in Texas in high school, right?
Yeah, I led the state in receiving my senior year, and so I was kind of a unexpected surprise in Class 4A. Not all classifications, but I was the leading receiver in Class 4A, and so yeah, and then to get a chance to play here at Tech, and that's really what sparked my interest in football. Prior to that, I was a baseball guy.
Really?
And played way more baseball than I did football. So the football thing just kind of happened. But, yeah, it gives me a little bit of I got a little idea of what goes on in Texas football for sure.
So we're going to walk through, I think, just each segment here. So for the first thing, just so we don't glaze over some details, a lot of people don't know what like 4A is, 1A, 2A, 3A. So when you say you were best at 4A, could you just kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah, so the high schools are divided up in classification based on the number of students that they have enrolled in the high school. So it's changed a little bit since I was in high school. So what was 4A back then would be 5A now. So they start with the smallest schools being in 1A all the way up to the super schools like Allen out in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that would be a 6A powerhouse. So they sort of divide that up. It basically is a way that they can provide a fair competitive balance for the programs. You don't want to have a team that's basically using a limited number of students, a small number, say 500 students, going up against a team like Allen that has 600. The talent gap would be quite a bit favoring in Allen's direction, and would be a really tough task for that smaller school to compete. So that's just how they kind of break it up from a competitive balance standpoint. It doesn't necessarily mean you can't have a small school team that's better than a big school team. We found that out a lot following our girls basketball team in the broadcast booth. The Phillies were the Class 3A girls state championship team, state champion winner a couple of years ago, but they beat several 6A schools that went long and on long playoff runs. So doesn't really speak to who's better, 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, just a way to try to balance it out, make the race more competitive, if you will.
Gotcha. So going from high school to college, like you said, you were number 1 in 4A, so you were kind of a top prospect, right?
Well, it's funny because just the stats alone don't necessarily make you a top recruit. There's so many other things that they consider, whether it's speed, size, height, weight. So I was kind of more of a mid-level recruit. I had a couple of offers to Division I schools, Oklahoma State and Texas Christian, but I was planning on playing both sports, to be totally honest with you. My roommate and best friend at the time in high school, it was Chad Reynolds, and he was the quarterback of our football team, and we were kind of a package deal. We were both going to go play both sports. He ended up not being recruited as a quarterback and ended up accepting a scholarship to pitch for the Red Raiders. And then sort of once that happened, I kind of changed the direction of where I wanted to go. Thought staying local, staying home would benefit me. And so I, planned on playing both football and baseball for Tech. But after a pretty successful true freshman year, the football bug kind of bit me, and so I changed my focus strictly on football, and that's kind of the direction I went.
So what is that courting process kind of like, from like D1 colleges offering you scholarships? Did you ever have people show up to your door? Did you just get the letters? How does that work? 'Cause
well,
a lot of people just see what we see on television,
right.
So we don't really know.
Yeah, right. Well, I think it depends on how highly touted of a recruit you were. Myself personally, I don't necessarily think that they felt like I was going to end up being some great player. I think they felt like that, I was kind of a mid-level guy. So my recruiting was very by the book, traditional. There was nobody going to break any rules and get in any trouble over me, for sure. I had a chance to talk to several coaches on the phones, got letters pretty much every day from all different schools. And, the letters are kind of cool. It makes you feel important, but they don't really mean just a whole lot. I got letters from pretty much every school in the Big 12 and a lot of schools around the country. But until they actually bring you in and make that offer to you, it's really just they're selling their school, if you will, and trying to make you feel good. You talk to these guys on the phone, they tell you basically where they see you fitting in their program and what their vision is for how you're going to come in and impact their teams and their rosters. And so you just kind of got to make the decision based off of what you feel like is in your best interest, as far as a player, but also, where do you want to go to school? What are those types of, what do you want to major in? What do you see yourself doing long term? And that can play a role as well. As, if you get certain schools that offer better opportunities in different fields, that can certainly lead you in a different direction. But, no bags of cash for me, no cars, nothing fancy like that. Like I said, I was not the kind of player they were going to risk being in trouble for.
Gotcha. Well, it turned out, though, you were the type of player that they would have, because I remember hearing you were up there with like names like Randy Moss and whatnot.
Right.
At the height of your college career.
Right. Yeah.
So what is that like? Because not everyone knows what it's like to be that good in college.
Yeah. So obviously my career exceeded expectations, I would say. I always felt like I could play at this level and could play with anybody. But selling other people on your abilities, that's a totally different thing. And I think a lot of it has to do with the location of where you're at. West Texas is just not given the same type of respect that you might get if you had put up the numbers I did in the Metroplex or in Houston. I might have had a whole different type of recruiting experience. But, I could run a little bit, and so that benefited me. But it's really just, you get to a certain level where everybody's talented, and it comes down to confidence and belief in yourself. And there's so much of the next level game is played between the ears. There's so much of it is psychologically based. You got to believe that you're going to make those plays. And I had some good fortune in my career early on, and that just sort of built on that. And then, earned the trust of the coaches. They started building offenses that sort of went around the things that I did well and my skill set. And next thing you know, you're third in the country in receiving yards, and you're right there with some of the who's who. And, and then you get an injury, and it kind of all ends all at once. But what a great run it was, and very thankful for the opportunity that I had to experience some of those things. I mean, took me to some great places, played in some unbelievable venues, and so have lifelong memories and lifelong friends, and wouldn't change it for anything.
Yeah. So you also, I remember you sent me a Twitter video. It was you playing against you and Peyton Manning's stats. So, first of all, what's it like just kind of in the moment, and you're seeing someone like that, and then you're thinking, you're number 3 in the country. He's, it's Peyton Manning. I mean, I don't know what you were thinking at the time, but it's Peyton Manning, right? So you both kind of had the idea that you're going to end up seeing each other again.
Yeah, we felt like, you felt like one guy was going on to do great things and be this ultra famous guy, and the other one had a football coach or a football player for a dad, and ended up being the number 1 pick, and was a high disappointment to the University of Tennessee, right? No, no. Peyton had been probably the most highly touted player, certainly while I was there, and he was coming back for his senior year, and he was the odds-on favorite to win the Heisman Trophy, and everybody kind of knew it. And, they schedule these games a couple years in advance, so you see that we're going to play Tennessee, and, everybody kind of thought he might leave early to go to the NFL draft. When he came back for his senior year, that meant we were going to be the opening game in Knoxville for Peyton Manning's senior year. And, I had not quite yet arrived on the scene. I'd had a big game against Texas my sophomore season, and had a really strong end of the season performance, but I really not got to that level yet to where I knew or thought that I was as good as those type of guys. So seeing Peyton was certainly intimidating. I think the entire Tennessee football surroundings were pretty intimidating. I mean, you got 105,000 people in the stands. They're screaming crazy. It was a night game, so all the tailgating that went on prior to the game. So that crowd was certainly revved up and ready to go for us. And you get to come out, and there's hedges on both sides, and I got the checkerboard end zone, and all these things you've seen, I think, growing up and watched on TV, and now to be a part of it, you really don't understand or grasp what's about to happen. And I think they put the ball on a tee, and I think the thing that they say there is it's football time in Tennessee. And when they make that announcement over the PA, that place explodes. And if you and I were standing next to each other, you wouldn't be able to hear a word I was saying. I mean, the weight of the volume from that crowd was penetrating into your chest. I mean, it would vibrate the insides of you. And so certainly intimidating for I think anybody who walks into that. And then, of course, they end up having one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever lace them up in Peyton Manning on the field. And he lit us up that night. And luckily I had a pretty good game, and so at the end of the deal, you get a chance to have ESPN and name the players of the game. And so Peyton Manning for Tennessee, myself for Texas Tech, and our pictures and stats go up on the broadcast together. And so it's kind of a cool thing I get to say later on. He goes on to be who he is, and so I say, one time, I was on the board right there with him as 2 guys who stood out in the game. So it's kind of cool experience.
No, that's great. It's a memory you're gonna have forever too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before I ask this next question, Kelly, how are our levels looking? Are we good? Check 1, 2.
We're good.
Okay. Now this is for everyone at Texas Tech.
Okay.
You lived it.
Yep.
And I asked you this question once before.
Yeah.
And I know what the answer is, but I want everyone else to hear it. So, there's been a lot of problems with the refereeing.
Yeah.
I'd say with Texas Tech and the Big 12.
Right.
Do you feel like there is? I wouldn't say a conspiracy, but do you feel like there's some animosity going on between the refs in the Big 12 and Texas Tech? Because we have seen it time and time again, Donnie.
I know. I'll tell you. I don't know if it's a conspiracy. I do think there's some things at play that people in higher positions than you and I are unwilling to let the public in on. So if you think about it, and you think about the money that's involved in certainly in college football and college basketball or whatever we're doing in terms of collegiate athletics, there's a lot of bowl money at stake, and now you got these playoffs, and so you get situations where you got a team like Texas or Oklahoma that's a name brand, a blue blood program, if you will, that has an opportunity to qualify for one of these higher class bowl games, or they have a chance to get into that championship tournament at the end of the year and be one of the Final Four. There's no doubt in my mind that their conference doesn't take that into consideration when those conference games towards the end of the season are being played. And so if they've got a team that is in position to go into one of those big money bowl games and there's an upset brewing from a school like Texas Tech, the benefit of the doubt is usually going to fall into the hand of the team that has the most to lose, and because that would be detrimental to the conference, right, for Texas Tech to win and then the Big 12 not get a team into the playoff. That would be bad for the conference in terms of revenue and being able to split that money all up. So, yeah, I think, from a players, coaches perspective, absolutely not. There's no way. There's no fixing games. People don't know the outcomes of games. The coaches and players on every school that I've ever been around, every program I've ever been around, are playing to win, and that goes all the way up through the NFL. But you can't tell me there's not some guys in boardrooms and making the decisions that don't say, hey, let's err on the side of caution here in terms of making sure we get our team in. And so I think that's really been the thing that has gotten Texas Tech the most, is we've been in a for good reason. We've been in position a couple of times to sort of upset the apple cart, if you will. But I also think that leads to what I was saying, whereas, you get something that's kind of on the edge there, and so a call goes against Tech. And this doesn't just happen to Tech. I mean, it's happened to Iowa State and all that stuff. It just hurts worse when it's happening to us.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love how you rationalize it and you're very objective about it, because a lot of college students are just going to hear that and be like, no, yeah, it's rigged. But you at least have an explanation there for you. So take the pit vipers. Serious time. Serious time's over.
Yep.
Had to take the pits off. So, like you said, you had an injury. Terrible thing to happen. It happens to a lot of people.
Right.
But you went on to have a thing called a pro day.
Yep.
To expatiate a little bit, can you explain what a pro day is for the people that don't?
Yeah, and that's the first time I've ever heard you say expatiates there, man. I'm showing off your vast range in vocabulary. So basically what the pro day is, it's part of the NFL draft process. So everybody hears about the combine, where everybody goes to Indianapolis and you run the 40-yard dash, you do your height, weight, they give you psychological interviews, and you do all these. Yeah, they just said it's basically job interviews. And they do well, obviously I didn't score very well on it.
Oh,
can't remember the name. There's a test there, intelligence test, and
the Dooley test or something like that.
Yeah, and so you're trying to, they're trying to find out if there's really any reason why they shouldn't take you, not the reasons why they should. They're trying to make sure they know why that they shouldn't invest a draft pick in you. And so you go to that combine, then you come back as part of the process and have what they call a pro day, and usually that takes place on your college campus in sort of a controlled environment that you're comfortable with. The scouts come, coaches come in some cases, depending on how high of a draft pick you're going to be and what they're going to invest. The owner sometimes even comes. I mean, you'll see on broadcast now where like Jerry Jones and, Coach McCarthy will go check out a certain player on pro day so that they know exactly what they're getting. And then you basically do all that over again. So you run the 40 again, you do your height, weight, you do your bench press, you do all your speed and agility drills. And then you do some position-specific drills. In my case, it would be running routes and catching passes and that sort of thing. And so you do all those type of ball skill drills. And then that's pretty much it. It sort of wraps up the process. They'll bring you in for visits, and they'll fly you in first class, make you feel like a really big deal. And it's basically just an extended interview where they're just sitting down, trying to find out who you are, what makes you tick. They'll talk to your high school coaches. They'll talk to random people that you may have come across just to kind of get an idea of what type of person you are and if you're somebody that they can depend on. And like I said, the higher the pick, the more scrutiny you're under. And so those guys are right smack dab in the middle of all that right now. We got the NFL draft coming up, not this week, but a week from Thursday. So it's going to be interesting. Every time you see that, to see this process, I think it's, for people like you and I who follow teams that are tough to be fans of sometimes. When the Eagles and Cowboys, it's hard to be those fans of those places. But I think the draft sort of is the new beginning, dawn of new hope for everybody, and so I think that's why everybody's so invested in it, is because it's a chance to start fresh, right?
Let me tell you, Donnie, it is not a dawn of new hope when you have picks that have been picked.
Yeah. You've done well. Come on, you've got a Super Bowl in the last couple of years.
Look, I don't want to say too many things. I'm trying to work for the Eagles, all right? But I will say it is a time of stress for Eagles fans. But speaking of draft, you did end up signing as an undrafted free agent to the Detroit Lions.
Yep.
What was that like?
Well, I guess it was sort of like picking a college all over again for me. Having not been drafted, it gave me the opportunity to sort of pick from a number of several different offers that I received. So I had the Lions as an option, the Cowboys, the Giants, the Rams, the Cardinals. So I had several different places I could have went. And then you sort of sit down and try to figure out, okay, and use your crystal ball, if you will, and see if there's a roster that maybe, they got a veteran on the way out, they've got an injury. Where could I maybe just catch on? And for me, Detroit had shown the most interest throughout the entire draft process, and so felt like that their draft, obviously they had some great players, but they're looking at their depth chart in their draft, they didn't add a wide receiver. They had Herman Moore, who was obviously an all-pro player, but he was a veteran kind of at the latter stage of his career. Had a couple of guys in the last years of their contract. So we felt like, if you go to Detroit, you got a decent chance to make the roster. And as it turns out, it just didn't work out for me. But, hindsight always 20/20. Cowboys ended up having Michael Irvin break his neck, and they ended up calling Alvin Harper off the streets from he was selling insurance in Tennessee. So they ended up calling him back 3 years after he had retired to come back to the Cowboys. So maybe if I had gone to Dallas, I could have caught on, with them. But it is what it is.
You don't want to be on Dallas,
you get those. Well, but you always have those things, those woulda, shoulda, coulda moments. And for me, I did everything I possibly could as a player, and I don't have regrets when it comes to that.
So, I mean, a lot of people don't know it. We don't know what it's like inside of a locker room.
Yep.
At the national level. So, what is that environment? What is,
Well, it's crazy because there's some guys in there that are they're multimillionaires. They're guys you see on ESPN. They're guys you see, on highlight shows and different things. And so it's an intimidating process for sure. You've got guys like Barry Sanders, who's going to the Hall of Fame, one of the greatest running backs of all time, and then, like I said, Herman Moore. So you've got guys that are driving up in Lamborghini Diablos, rich of the rich, and then you got guys like me who are hanging on, undrafted free agent, who scraping up quarters to, be able to go eat a burrito at Taco Bell. So, it's really different. You got guys from all different parts of the country. So you'll have guys from the Deep South and guys from the West Coast and guys from the Northeast, and so they all come together in this melting pot, if you will, and try to come together and find a common goal. And I think the one thing that it sort of bonds you is the love for the sport. And so the guys end up, the workouts are tough. The battle, it's a hard game, right? Football's physical. It's hard. It's demanding. And so I think trust is earned and respect is earned in those environments of that shared pain, because it's so hard to to get through the 2-a-days and all those workouts and stuff like that. And so once that respect is made and those bonds are given, you end up having close-knit locker rooms and friends for life. And, unfortunately for me, I was there for a little while and got sent out. But in that short time, just so many things I can think about and so many players I saw that just, you can't believe.
Speaking of players you saw, what's Barry Sanders like?
Yeah, so Barry, I was kind of unlucky on this deal. Barry was kind of on his way out, so didn't get to see much of him. That was the year that I went up there was the year that he ended up retiring once training camp opened. So just got to kind of see him in some mini camps and different things like that. And just, you can't. How else do you describe his greatness, right? Everything that they say about that guy is absolutely true. And you watch the film from the seasons before, and as we're learning plays and different things, and you get to see what he's doing on a 3-yard gain. I mean, everybody sees that 70-yard run, but you didn't see the fact that he made 3 guys miss to gain 3 yards on a 3rd down and 2 in week 5 at Green Bay in the second quarter. Those are things that average fan misses, right? Because you're watching SportsCenter and everybody gets used to watching the highlight plays. And so the true greatness lies in the guy like that who's gaining positive yards, keeping the chains moving, picking up the linebacker blitz to allow the quarterback to get off a pass. And it doesn't take long to understand why a guy like that is who he is. You
also met who's that big time wide receiver on Detroit?
Yeah, Herman Moore.
Moore. Yeah, you went to Herman Moore's house. Herman Moore's mansion.
Yeah, it was he hosted the group over for a boxing match, and we got to go over there, and it was pretty impressive. He certainly beat the Residence Inn that we were all staying in, and what a cool guy. Just a really class act that he was one of those guys that was trying to be a mentor to people and share and add back to the game. And what a great player, a guy that, should be in the Hall of Fame and probably will be at some point, but just incredible player. And, what an experience. Yeah.
Serious Pit Vipers are on back.
Oh, man, here we go.
It's actually not a serious question. I just want to put them on. What's like your favorite or say your coolest memory in football? And it doesn't even have to be you playing either.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, that's such a broad question. I think the real truth of that is, and this is probably, people probably say you're crazy, but it's really an entire season, and it goes back to when I was a junior in high school. And listen, I went to Friendship, and Friendship prior to me getting there had bumped up, and we talk about those classifications a lot. So they had moved from 3A to 4A. And so they were a 3A power, and then when they moved up to 4A, they kind of were kind of the little kid on the block, and they were kind of getting pushed around a little bit. And so my first year on varsity as a sophomore, we went 2-8, and it was a part of like a 3-year run there where just 2-8, 2-8, 2-8. And so when I was a junior, the group above us had some really strong seniors, and we made a commitment that we were going to change the course of Friendship football, and really went to work, and we ended up, going to the playoffs that year and losing a first-round playoff game. But from where we had been to where we ultimately got to go 8-3, get to the playoffs, it was incredible. And to do it with guys you grew up with and your friends, and that whole season just was a really magical ride. And it sort of, like I said, led to me falling in love with football, which ultimately got me to Tech and all that stuff. So I think that's probably, I don't know if it's the most memorable, but it's probably definitely the most impactful thing I ever had in football. So
see, I love that answer because it segues into kind of this next part. So the reason I'm doing this is because, like I told you earlier, there's people out there that, sports is a niche, and a lot of people don't really get that. They don't get it. It's just not really their thing.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of just bring them in a little bit, or just kind of let them know from our perspective. And you said a lot of things earlier, like you built something your junior year, and then you have you learn respect and all of these things, leadership. How did you start loving sports, and why do you love it as much as you do? Because where you are now, you played ever since you were a kid,
Right.
whether it would not be football, it was baseball, but here you are, how many years later, and you're still in that arena. There's a driving force for
Yeah.
people like you and me, and for people that say like or Kelly like are into music.
Right.
There's a reason there. So if you could kind of just explain how you fell in love with it and why.
Well, I think when you're a kid, it's kind of what you're exposed to, right? And I was always surrounded by guys that were interested in sports, and that's kind of what my friends did. And you get out there, and it was so much different growing up, in the 80s as opposed to what it might be for my kids now. We didn't have smartphones, and video games were very much in their infancy, so they were not nothing like the cool games that we have today. And so a lot of time was spent outside and playing in the neighborhood. And so whether it was riding bikes or hitting the pool or whatever, sports was just kind of a way for you to come together and have an organized playtime, really, more than anything. And I can't tell you the number of wiffle ball games and front yard touch tackle football that we played, and basketball during basketball season. And sort of we just kind of went with the seasons. So if it was baseball season, we played wiffle ball. If it was basketball, we were shooting hoops. And then in the fall, everybody's out in the front yard tackling each other and playing football. And you grow up in a college town like Texas Tech, and they've got a program that's a major college. And back then it didn't cost a whole lot of money to go watch the games. For $5 you could go sit in the grass.
Mm-hmm.
And that's right there by the ticket office, and there was a big grass knoll on the outside of the stadium there. And so the whole deal was, let's go in, let's watch some of the game, let's try to get the cheerleader to throw us one of those plastic footballs, and if somebody scores one, we're going out to the front lawn and playing our own game. Who cares about the Red Raiders? So that's certainly different from what my kids are growing up and experiencing. But I think it's that just camaraderie with your buddies and giving yourself something to do. And then, I think you have to have a talent for it. I think if we're talking about music here, I love music. I can't play a lick and can't sing a note. So, my interest is certainly limited because of the fact I just don't have the ability to be successful in that realm. And I think, I was blessed to be able to run a little bit, and I had pretty good hand-eye coordination. And, it's sort of the success just kind of built on itself. And the competition, the camaraderie, it just kind of leads people to fall in love with it. And I think it's something that everybody can relate to on some level. Like, you don't have to get to the NFL to have that feeling of victory.
Mm-hmm.
You can win your little league. My little girl just won, the first second grade Little Dribblers basketball championship in Shallowater the other day. And, it felt like they won the state championship for the Phillies. So, I think it's something everybody can kind of relate to on some level. Everybody's experienced it, tried it a little bit.
Gotcha. So, 2 more questions here, and then I have one more that's just like a fun question to stand out on. But so it's different. At least for me, I played in high school, and here I am now. I get the opportunity every once in a while to call a game, which I love doing. You
Right.
played it at multiple levels when it was real and
Right.
things were serious. So you come back and you're broadcasting these games. You're doing play-by-play. You're doing colors for high school sports and stuff like that. So the first part of the question is, what's it like, kind of on the outside looking in now? And then the second one is, what can you tell kids that maybe are aspiring in a sport or in football and kind of look up to you and see what you did when you were in college? Just maybe some advice there. You can take your time to answer this one, because I probably should have gave you the list of questions before you came.
No. Listen, being up in the booth is a great extension for me, because it gives you I feel like I can see the game through the eyes of the players, and then having spent just a little time, albeit briefly, coaching the game, I was coached for 15 years. So as a player, you can kind of relate to what coaches have said to you and that sort of thing. And so, up in the booth, that's how I try to, fit my broadcast in, is to just kind of give you what I think maybe going on in the minds of those players and those coaches down there. And, and then just kind of explain certain nuances and things that I know might be in play here. If it's a certain situation in a certain point in the game, what possible strategy might we be considering to do to be successful? And so, as a broadcaster, I think you're just trying to explain what's happening and paint the picture for the audience. And, I feel like I know a lot about the sport. There's certainly people that have forgotten more football than I'll ever know. But, you also have people that are new to it that don't know near as much as what I knew or know. So, I'm trying to make it come to a common ground to where everybody can follow and understand what's happening on the field. As far as the guys and what I tell people, I got a daughter that's trying to win a state track championship this year, and she's off to a great start. And we got a big regional track meet coming up, and I think the biggest thing for any athlete is to really just stay in the moment, believe in, trust what you've done. You've put in the work, you've put in the hours, you've done all the work that you can possibly do. You got to trust your training, trust your abilities, and then just go out and do the absolute best individual job you can do. And really, the rest of it's out of your control. You got to let the chips fall where they may. And from a coach's standpoint, maybe that's not probably the answer that they would hope that you would give. Coaches, we got to win, we got to do these things, we got to do these things. But really, it comes down to if you've trained yourself and you've put in the practice and the work and the effort and all that stuff, the result should take care of itself and be whatever it's supposed to be. If you can beat a team, you should be able to beat them. And if they beat you, then might not be anything you didn't do, might just be on that particular day they were better than you were for whatever reason. So that's the big thing. Just believe in yourself. Know that you've put in all the work and trust your training and then just shoot your gun, man. Give it your best. Give it your best shot. Yeah.
No, I mean I love both of those answers. I mean, like you said, the amount of perspective that you can offer to the game, especially at the high school level, is awesome. Because you even teach me. I remember sitting in the car before we went and did a game, and you're breaking down defensive formations for me, just so I still have the cards that you wrote out. You know what I mean? But yeah, I really like how you talked about how sports is a community, because it is. You know, it's a community, and some could say it's a brotherhood depending on the sport, but it's like a community, and a lot of people say it's a niche, but to me it's more of like a family thing. Everyone just, I say everyone gets along, but I mean Cowboys and Eagles fans don't get along. Ravens and Browns fans don't get along. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's a common goal there. There's a common thing that unites us.
Well, you gotta have rivals, right? And you gotta have people that you're inspired to perform well against and to beat and all those things. And Red Raiders don't like Aggies or Longhorns. We get all that stuff. But I think if anything, what we've learned in the last year and a half is what can be taken away from us and what we might have to do without. And so. Sports as a culture, I think, has changed a lot since, maybe the 60s and 70s, where guys were doing dirty things to their rivals and poking people in the eyes on the bottom of piles and, trying to take cheap shots and end careers. If you watch games today, there's a common respect between opponents, even though they're out there in between the lines thriving to beat each other. You take LeBron James, for example. He's trying his very best to beat Steph Curry to make sure that his team is successful. But at the end of the game, they come together and they embrace, and there's a certain brotherhood there. And some old school people don't like that. They think that means that you're soft or that you're not competitive. And I look at it differently. I think these young people are far more enlightened than what we used to be back in the day, and they understand that at the end of the day, it's a competition, and I can be really good at it and still have respect and know that you're really good at it too. And so I think it's refreshing, and it's funny, you know. I guess people get caught up in the eras that they played or they watched or whatever, and they always want to think, you know, it was better then than it is now, or better when I did this, it was much better. I've never seen the type of athletes that we have today. I mean, these kids, you know, in high school are guys. I mean, they are skilled, fundamentally gifted athletes, and they're in high school with no chance to go to college. And then when you get to the college and you go out to Tech and you watch a practice, and as a former Red Raider, I look at it and go, man, I don't think I could. I can't even make the roster. You know, these guys are incredible, and I can only imagine what it's like to be on the pro level and see what type of physical freaks they are now. So it's certainly going to places it's never been, and you know, I think for the better.
Yeah, it's on its way. Last question, I guess, kind of that pertains to this kind of thing that we're doing here.
Yep.
For people that don't watch sports or don't really get it, or maybe thinking about getting into it, what's kind of your opinion or advice to bring them in, or to tell them what sports is all about?
Well, I mean, it's really, sports is sort of a microcosm of your life, right? It's sort of like a mirror of the things that you're going to face as you go through life. So, you know, we're all gonna have successes, and we're gonna have adversity, and we're gonna have things that you know, test us emotionally, and they test us physically, and you know, it's something that you can relate to how you're going to react when you have that same type of situation occur in your life. You know, if you know, you go put all your effort into the winning a championship, and it doesn't happen for whatever reason, there's resounding disappointment. You know, there's obvious failure that overcomes you, but you got to learn how to look at that and say to yourself, well, what did I learn here? What did I do? What did I do great? What did I improve on? What areas was I really good in? Even though I didn't get the outcome that I ultimately wanted. I think that happens in life a lot. You know, you set your sights on a certain financial goal or a certain career goal, and for whatever reason, you know, you become a drug rep after 2 years of coaching, and 17 years later you're still selling pharmaceuticals. You know, you never really know where it's going to go, but I think all the lessons that you learn in sports you can apply in the various areas that you're in, and I think that's why people love it so much. I think that's why people are drawn to it, and I think that's why, you know, it's so important for these, especially young kids, to experience it, and people to understand how to come together and be a part of a team that's thriving to reach a common goal, whether you get to that ultimate goal, or you make several goals, smaller goals along the way. There's a sense of camaraderie and teamwork that is critical as you go on in your life.
Kelly, that's the best answer we've had over the past three. We interviewed my buddy Bailey, who played JUCO last time, and I asked him the same question. He goes, if you don't like sports, there's something wrong with you. And I was like, well, I can't use that.
Well, he might not be wrong about that.
But yeah, that's perfect. Couple more questions. These are just fun ones. That was the last question really for school.
Oh, good. Okay, so I don't have to be so deep now. I can dumb it down a little here.
Yeah, you can dumb it down. Here, I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick before I answer these questions. Okay. Now we can just start talking some more stuff.
Okay.
Cowboys number 10. Where y'all going?
Well, it's looking like we're going cornerback. I think Surtain, the second, is probably the odds-on choice, although if the tight end Pitts were to be available, I don't think he falls to 10. But if he did, I think our owner is enamored with him. So
he
we
was
could
about
move
turning
up.
to 4. Yeah.
Yeah, it could move up. But ultimately, I think that's going to end up costing too much draft collateral, and they're in a situation where they got so many holes on the defensive side, and offensive line now has become, what used to be a strength now has become an issue because of age and retirement, injuries, and that sort of thing. So probably the smart move is just sort of stay where you're at, see what falls to you. Probably corner.
I mean,
likely.
Defense was a smart move last year too, but Jerry's trying to sell jerseys. Now, okay, so here's my thing with Pitts. Pitts is generational talent.
Yep.
Okay, and I know like trading up to 4 because people think the Falcons are going to get him at 4.
Right.
I know picking defense is kind of risky in the top 10 or at least the top 5, but I mean, look at the Falcons. They were 31st last year in points allowed. I think they averaged like 32.5 points a game. So to say that a lot of people say, I mean, you obviously know more because you have more experience with this, but people always think these skill position players are going to all go top 10. In the past decade, I think I have the list with me. Only 10 wide receivers have been picked in the top 10, and 3 of them were picked at the same time, and that was Corey Davis, John Ross, and someone else. I think maybe Amari Cooper as well.
Right.
Yeah, these were all top 10. But look at everyone thought Jerry Jeudy, everyone thought Henry Ruggs, everyone thought CeeDee Lamb, and not just for Jefferson, but those 3 were going to go in the top 10 too. And look at where they fell.
Right.
I'm pretty sure it was Jerry Jeudy went at 11 or 12.
Right.
So Kyle Pitts, I mean, he's Weapon X, but I just looking at what these teams in the top 10 need. I don't really see him going until maybe 7 or 8.
Yeah. Well, if he goes at 4, he's the highest tight end ever drafted, right? So Mike Ditka was drafted 5th, right, I think, by the Bears, and that's the highest any tight end's ever been drafted. So if he goes 4th, he's the all-time highest drafted tight end. Look, so you got to have a quarterback, first of all, right? Quarterback-driven league. So that you see these quarterbacks being thrust up to the front of the draft. So, but I think there's been a little shift in the way teams think recently, and maybe for the better, in my opinion, because instead of necessarily worrying about what they need and focusing on that, I think they're starting to look at, like, okay, who is absolutely the best player on the board? Who is the surefire guy? Who do we know we're not going to whiff on? Because for everything you just said, those guys you mentioned not necessarily have turned out to be great picks for those teams. John Ross and Corey Davis, not a great team. Amari Cooper's not on the team who drafted him anymore. He's now on the Cowboys. So I think it's more about, okay, maybe we don't need a tight end if we're Atlanta. Obviously we don't. We've had the 5th worst pass defense in the history of the NFL last year, right? It would stand to reason they would be looking at a player like Patrick Surtain, cornerback, to try to help that issue. But I think more than that, they look at it and they go, okay, who's the guy we're not going to miss? Who do we know is not going to be a whiff? And so I think that's why you see guys like Kyle Pitts, who in normal drafts probably fall somewhere in that 8, 9, 10 range, being pushed up the board a little bit because there's such an abundance of defensive talent, but it doesn't appear to me like there's any surefire, hey, this guy is destined to be a Hall of Famer. There's no Deion Sanders
there's no
in
Brian
this draft.
Dawkins,
right.
No Asante. No, yeah, I get that. Me and my buddy had an argument about this the other day too, because it pissed me off. But I see where he's coming from. Generational talent is generational talent. You're going to get what you're going to get.
Right.
But then I look at the Cowboys and I say, well, they have 2 generations worth of talent, and they still manage to get a top 10 pick every year. So there's a hole there. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a GM. Like at first, I was super upset about Howie Roseman trading back to 12, and then because I wanted Jamar Chase, I wanted Waddle or Smith or Pitts, but looking at what I looked at as far as the wide receivers go, Kyle Pitts and Jamar Chase, based off of what you said and based off of what the experts are saying, probably not going to make it to 10.
Right.
But we're still going to get a really good wide receiver at 12, and on top of that, we have an abundance of first-round picks in 2022 that we can trade away if Hurts doesn't pop off the way that he's supposed to.
So interesting. Let me give you a scenario, Mr. Eagle fan.
Okay.
I wonder what your thought is on this. Okay, so let's say it goes chalk in the first four. So it goes Lawrence, it goes Wilson, and then let's say it goes Fields or Mac Jones. That's been the hot debate, right? Why did San Francisco move to 3? So they take a quarterback there. Atlanta does make that trade. They get Pitts goes at 4. Then at 5, I think they've talked a little bit about the tackle from Oregon to the Bengals. Then you get 6. You get the guys like Jamar Chase going off the board. What if it falls to Philadelphia at 12 and nobody has picked Trey Lance? I mean,
I'm trying to get hired by the Eagles here, man.
Yeah, come on, man. You're on board with that, right? That's your insurance for your quarterback you don't know about.
We always have insurance on our quarterback, and last year's insurance defaulted. Okay, I mean, we're trading away Carson Wentz, which I get Carson Wentz. There's a power structure problem that's happening within the Eagles, which is the same as the Cowboys. They like a head coach that they can kind of push around. Like Howie Roseman calls personnel.
Yep.
So to have another, because that's not insurance. That's just creating another competition. And Jeffrey
competition breeds excellence.
It did not breed last year's excellence.
Well, that's because you didn't have anybody that could compete with Hurts. Wentz wasn't capable.
I'm telling you, he's going to pop off at the Colts. I think he's going to do really good at the Colts. Man, I wouldn't be surprised if we got Trey Lance. It's just like, if we're going to get a quarterback, I would have rather us traded up to 3 and got what's his name? What's his name?
Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson. I was going to say.
Well, you'd have had to get to 2 to get Zach Wilson because he's going to the Jets.
Well, I'm pretty sure we're trading up to. I think, if I remember right, we wanted to trade up to 3 to try to get Zach Wilson, but we couldn't hit either one of those.
Right.
And then we thought Jamar Chase was probably going to go at 5 to the Bengals.
And he might because they have an LSU quarterback.
Yeah,
so
that's what because I'm pretty sure he's pushing for him. Getting Trey Lance at 12, I don't like it. I would rather us just get a generational talent at skill position and then use next year's first rounders to get maybe Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson.
But you drafted a wide receiver last year, number 1.
He's nuts.
In the first round.
We're gonna get another one.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm just saying
Or
that's
Kyle Pitts.
that's 2 first-round picks in the last 2 years that you've invested in one position.
I mean, we need it. I mean, look, Greg Ward is great. Okay, but
so you don't think Rager's a bust?
No, Rager's nuts. Rager's like, he has a faster in-game time than Tyreek Hill, or I think by like 0.1 second.
Okay, so why do you need it? Why is it then that you're dead set on drafting a wide receiver at 12?
Because it's generational talent. Look,
Who?
We just talked
but
about
who's it? But who's the generational talent?
I mean, if we could get Jamar Chase,
he's not going to fall. You just said he's not going to fall.
We could get Waddle. We could get Devonta Smith. Devonta Smith will probably be there at 12.
Maybe Waddle.
Where do you think Smith is going?
Probably, let's see. So you say Pitts goes 4. I could see Smith going to the Giants at 11.
Yeah, I could see that too. Well,
although they did just sign Galladay, so that helps you some.
I mean, not really.
So because they got a wide, so they're probably not thinking wide receiver.
I'm just saying, like, looking at what we have, and I really don't see. I mean, we have picks to get a new quarterback. I don't think we should invest in them. I think, like I said, I think we should get a wide receiver. I wish we could get Pitts if somehow he does fall to 12.
But you already have a tight end.
Yeah, but he's not Kyle Pitts. We just talked about this. There's this generational talent that we're trying to assess here.
Well, what if the generational talent is Trey Lance?
Probably not.
Well, might be.
Maybe.
Measurables, I'll say he's the real deal.
All I'm saying is, looking at what we have Travis Fulgham, Greg Ward.
So then, basically, you want them to trade up to 4 and take Kyle Pitts.
Depending on what it costs. I mean, I still think we'll get someone good at 12. Like I said, Jalen Rager's nuts, but he's like an X factor player. He's not a Devontae Adams.
So if you guys take Horn, the corner from South Carolina, you're going to be just ho-hum about it? Just you're going to walk out
I wouldn't
sad?
be super upset because our secondary's been struggling for a while, but also there's been some consequences to drafting a quarterback that high in the first, or cornerback. I mean, it's always sketchy with them.
You feel like the corner is hard to assess, huh?
I mean,
let's look at it this way. Per your argument, right? You're wanting to draft a wide receiver. Okay, so let's break that down from a year before. So Henry Ruggs went to the Raiders. Not a great rookie year, right?
He's
First round.
Nuts, so
but it wasn't a great rookie year. True. Okay, Judy. Okay. Okay. Who else was a first rounder? Rager. So who was the best rookie wide receiver?
Justin Jefferson.
What round was he picked in?
First.
No.
Yes, he was.
No.
He was picked right after – Justin Jefferson was picked right after Rager.
I believe Justin Jefferson was a second-round pick. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Late
sure
first. Okay, maybe he was 28th, but I thought he was a second-round pick.
No, it was definitely first. He went right after Rager.
So, but the guys that you're saying that weren't any good picks.
I got to look this up now.
Yeah, you got to look it up.
I got to double check. I mean, Devontae Adams was drafted in the second round.
Okay.
I think.
Yes.
Definitely wasn't the first. Justin Jefferson was drafted. 21 years old. Can you believe that?
How old are you? 21?
22.
22. Man, you're an old man.
Don't say that. He was drafted 2020 draft. I've looked up every year's draft. I wish Cameron was here because he does all the Googling for me. Chase, Henry Ruggs, Jerry G.
Fact checking me on Justin Jefferson.
Yep, Jalen Rager 21, Justin Jefferson 22.
Okay, so he's a 22nd round pick, or 22nd overall pick, excuse me. Okay, but how many receivers drafted in front of him?
3.
So
4.
So why the urgency to go draft a receiver at number 12 when the best receiver in the class came out at 22?
Well, look at.
I'm just saying,
Yeah, you're saying, the best receiver in the class came out at 22, but his situation was much different. Jerry Jeudy should have went off. Jerry Jeudy was disrespecting cornerbacks the whole time. He just didn't have an offensive scheme that gave him the ball any. Jerry Jeudy is still that guy. Henry Ruggs just had he's on the Raiders. Derek Carr is okay, but he's still super fast. And now that Nelson Aguilar is gone, he's going to be a true number 1. So I think he's going to have a pretty good year. Jalen Rager, if Hurts turns out to what he is, and Sirianni actually ends up becoming a good offensive coordinator or a good head coach, and we get him open.
Who is this guy? Your coach again? Where did y'all get him from?
From the Colts. He's the offensive coordinator for the Colts.
You're super pumped about that, huh?
I wasn't super pumped about his interviews. He's not he wasn't a guy where I'm like, I'm not super happy about him, but I just have to see what he's like. You know what I mean? I'm sure he's a good guy, but if he schemes I think Rager will be okay.
He had you frustrated first day.
Who?
Your coach.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
When I saw that video.
Somebody sent that to you, huh?
It was you. He looked so nervous. I was like, geez, I don't know how he's gonna survive in Dallas at a home game. It's gonna be right. I don't know. Yeah, he's a first-year head coach, so we'll see. We're definitely not gonna be good this year.
Well, you might be.
Depending.
Who knows? The Cowboys, right? We think the Cowboys are always going to be best team in the NFC. We're picking 10th. Now the year that you kind of don't expect anything from them, maybe this is the year that they pop, and feel the same way about Philly. That NFC East is so bad.
They're on the up and up, though.
Well, there's really no other way to go but up.
That's why I like how Fitzpatrick went to the Washington football team.
Oh, you're happy about that?
Not for the division, but here's my thing with Fitzpatrick. When he went to the Dolphins, I loved it for him because my buddy Shane said it the best. He could be the best quarterback in the league when he wants to be. Okay, when he was playing for the Dolphins, he had nowhere to go but up because he went there where there was just no expectation. With Houston, he could have went either way and he went down. But Miami, he couldn't go down any further, so all he went was up, and he ended up becoming a really good quarterback. So going to the Washington football team, a team that can prove itself, and I like their talent, especially with Antonio Gibson, which you called. Scary Terry. I think he could be really good, or he could be really bad, but I think he's going to do pretty good.
Right.
I think he's going to do okay. The Giants, nah. they can be okay. The Cowboys can be the best team in the NFL when they want to be. But first of all, Big Money Mike don't think he can do it. I don't.
Well, we just have we're too much icing and not enough cake.
You guys are bound for bankruptcy too.
We don't have anybody that can. We don't have any meat potatoes guys that can move the needle. So we don't, like there's no offensive line like it used to be. The defensive line is suspect. The defense in general is suspect. We're all icing. We're a great. The Cowboys are a great Madden team.
Yeah.
Like
they
great
are.
quarterback, great running back, great receivers. You can beat people in Madden, right? That's kind of our curse. So.
I mean, it's all about complementary football. Like, look at the Chiefs and look at the Bucks. The Bucks played better complementary football, I think. I think the Bucks have a better defense.
Yeah, better defense, no doubt.
The Chiefs, I love Andy Reid. Andy Reid's a great coach. Eric Bieniemy, great coordinator. Offense, excellent. Patrick Mahomes, all-star. I don't think Patrick Mahomes would have been that good if he didn't go with Andy Reid, even though, he's still great. Obviously. He would have been good, but I don't think he would be as great as he was with Andy Reid.
Yeah.
But their defense is almost kind of like it's a little better than the Cowboys. Like it was always kind of a shootout with them.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, but the Cowboys, I think they just lack coaching.
Cowboys have an owner meddling problem.
So do we.
They gotta have they need to have one clear voice, and the voice on the sideline gets overruled by the guy in the front office too much. So.
I think it's a big problem.
But hey, if I was Jerry Jones, I would probably run it the same way. Look, here's the deal. Like, we're sitting here dying on our guts on this. We're talking about it, and you got to understand, this is just for those guys that are owners of this team. It's just a great big giant fantasy football league.
Yeah.
True.
You think they have a big group message where they just make fun of each other?
I mean, that's how I would run it, right? If you own the Eagles, would you pay attention to what either one of us thought?
Depends.
No.
Depends if you're on my podcast, Don. I always wondered that. Like, what if one of us ended up becoming a GM, and one of us, and one of our friends still had our number? What kind of shit we would get?
Yeah, you probably get all sorts of suggestions. I bet that's, yeah. I mean, you always think you want to do that job, right? Until you're actually in it.
It's
right,
I mean, so. I would like to help, but. Howie Roseman, geez, he can be the most loved man in Philadelphia, or he could be the most hated man in Philadelphia.
Well, if Jalen Hurts ends up being a Pro Bowler and you guys win the NFC East and win a playoff game, you're going to, this time next year, you'll be going, man, Howie, he knew.
Okay.
Especially when Wentz goes to Indy and it all falls apart.
Yeah, man, I was upset with Howie over the trade, but thinking about it, I actually really on board with the trade he did. Not with Carson.
You know what?
With
let's be honest. Your Eagle green can't help but bleed through. So your original reaction is to be like, okay, this is bad, but then you always seem to be able to talk yourself into it a couple of weeks later, and you're back on board. So they can do anything, and you're always going to love them.
No. No. Okay, when they bench okay, I didn't want them to fire Doug. I still believed in Doug. I still think Doug is a good coach. I just think that he didn't get the freedom that a head coach needs to do his job. So I thought he got stale after a while. Look at what he did in the last game. He purposely threw and then got fired. Sometimes with them. Sometimes, like Carson, I still love Carson. But fundamentally, he broke down after all the firing and all we broke him psychologically in the front office. We didn't break him out on the field.
No. I think you're that guy. You're that Phillies guy. You're the EAGLES Eagles guy.
It's me.
Right?
It's me.
Fly Eagles fly, right? You're going to be on board regardless.
I'm gonna love him forever.
You'll figure out a way to talk yourself into it being the right way.
It could be
the initial reaction will be mad.
That's how I always do that. One thing happens, I'm like, we're never gonna win, and then I'll think about it. I'm like, we go all the way.
See,
you go. We could get that one chick from Villanova as the kicker, and I would hate it, and then I would read some Eagles Twitter. I'd read some Eagles Reddit, and I'm like, man, we can go all the way. She could be the X factor.
Hey, you never know, man. You never know. You just got to get out of your own way, Damiano. 2 years I've listened to this Eagle belly aching, and it's like you guys haven't won a Super Bowl. Try being in my shoes. We haven't been any good since the 90s. Yeah, but, like, dude.
You watched it, though.
Yeah, when I was in high school. I mean, come on. That's been a minute. That's been a minute.
Yeah, y'all got to get out of your own way.
I'm starting to get gray hair here. Not as much as Jerry, but.
The blue and white's starting to bleed through.
Yeah, got a little salt in the pepper.
Salt in the pepper.
More salt, though, than pepper. That's a problem.
So you're in a dynasty league, right?
Yeah, it's kind of more of a keeper league type thing than a dynasty for keepers.
What's your pick?
Yeah, sort of mortgaged the franchise this year. So I don't have any early picks. I was trying to win the league last year and gave away all my
What's your pick?
Draft collateral. Well, I don't have a first-round pick. Don't have a second-round pick, so I gave away.
You traded all that away? Your
yeah,
team's
I was
pretty
trying.
Good, though.
It was, yeah, but we'll see. Got second, got beat in the Super Bowl, made a bad lineup change.
Same here.
Call and got beat. So now I got to figure out a way to put the pieces back together without losing too much.
You know who lost me the Super Bowl in Dynasty?
Who's that?
Corey Davis and Jalen Hurts.
Oh, yeah. Jalen didn't have a real good game against the Cowboys, did he?
No, I should have started. Josh Allen. The green bled through, Donnie.
So you went Jalen Hurts over Josh Allen.
Because Jalen Hurts had a really good game the week before I started.
Yeah, and the Cowboys' defense was bad in your defense, so. Yeah, I could see where you make that call.
Corey Davis, he was just so wishy-washy for me, and I had injuries. Like Chris Godwin last year, Michael Thomas last year. I mean, I have a good wide receiving core. Now, my friends are going to watch this podcast and they're going to roast me. I have a good wide receiving core. Okay, I got Michael Thomas, I got Chris Godwin. Okay, I've got Travis Kelce. I've got Calvin Ridley. I've got a good wide receiving core. The only one that's better is my buddy. He's got Devonta Adams and Stephon Diggs and a couple others. But I fundamentally got screwed last year. Okay, I mean, I still made it to second, but I should have went all the way if it wasn't for these injuries and Michael Thomas. I don't know, getting called slant boy on the sidelines by Malcolm Jenkins, and all of this nonsense. I'm coming for it this year, though.
Well,
every year is a new year.
You're the ultimate optimist, Damiano. That's what I love about you.
What do you mean? I just have a winning team.
No,
I just can't lose.
See,
just like the Philadelphia Eagles, we have a winning team that can't lose.
That's right.
Until we lose week 1 against the Redskins, or I'm sorry, the Washington football team.
Week 2, you'll be calling me, going, "Hey, come on, man, help me out. It's all over. Come on, give me your guy. Who's Antonio Gibson? I gotta have it."
No. I'm gonna be calling you like a month before, Donnie. I learned my lesson last year.
I might have spent too much time at this over the course of the last couple of years. So.
I love it. Anyways, yeah, man, I don't want to keep you too long. I know you got things to do and whatnot, but I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for sharing your expertise, your life. We appreciate it.
Yeah, hey, buddy, anytime. And thanks for riding shotgun with me the last couple of years. I don't know if you're going to be around here next year. Hopefully you are. But if you're not, there will be a big hole to fill in our broadcast, because you did a great job for Shallow Water and for me. And I know you talked about the cards and all that stuff and the stuff that I taught you, but this technology and these cameras and all that stuff, you had a really big job to get me up to speed on all this stuff. So thanks for that. And, man, anything I can do for you down the road, don't hesitate. I'm just a phone call away, man.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
Yes, sir. Donnie Hart, everyone. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate Kelly Crook for helping me produce this thing back there. And I'm going to use Donnie's line from Lubbock, Texas. It's been a good day to be – I can't say Philly. What can I say? It's been a good day to be a Philadelphia Eagle.
There you go.